Welcome to the Why Would You Think That podcast. Me and Justin going just the two of us for right now, since other people can't get their crap together for scheduling purposes.
That would be correct.
Alright, so we're going to talk about some NBA stuff. For those of you who don't watch the NBA until the postseason, we're going to discuss 5 top storylines. We're also going to be discussing I think that would be on the next podcast. Justin has some interesting lists to bring up. So, you want to start, Justin? You want me to go first?
Start us off, Zach.
Alright, so, my first one, the Toronto Raptors are serious Eastern Conference contenders. I believe the Toronto Raptors coach Nick Nurse should be a serious Coach of the Year candidate, not only with what they've done record-wise, but competing with the Bucks before the other night when Charlotte beat the Bucks, holding Giannis to about 16 points.
I believe so.
I didn't
yes.
really look at my numbers for that. That was bad prep on that. But the Raptors held them to 38% shooting from the floor. Really impressive stuff. They shot almost a better percentage from 3. Giannis had 19 points against the Raptors. That's what I'm thinking of. But the Hornets did do a lot better in that regard. And I'm just going to talk about. I love observing teams that are competent.
I wonder why.
And I view, because there are so many people in this world that I view are dumb.
Correct.
So I love observing competent management. So competent roster construction of the Toronto Raptors. You draft Pascal Siakam, you draft OG Anunoby. You sign Fred VanVleet, who is an undrafted free agent. You trade for Serge Ibaka. You trade for Kyle Lowry. You trade for Marc Gasol. It's a lot of B-plus players that are able to fit, work, do everything they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they are currently 42-18.
Second seed in the East, right behind the Bucks.
Yep. And they're not afraid of the Bucks. So those are really the only 2 teams I feel that can compete for the Eastern Conference to go to the finals. I don't view any other team. Every other team has a ceiling of the Eastern Conference Finals. They cannot make it to the finals, in my opinion, which is going to be one of my other storylines.
Okay. I do feel like there are, I'd say, 4 full teams that have a chance to make the conference finals for the East, being Bucks, Pacers, Celtics, Raptors.
Okay.
Because I feel like those are, in my opinion, those are by far the top teams of the East. Outside of that, you're getting the Heat, which I feel like the Heat are a little too young for being serious playoff contenders. And then you have the 76ers, who are just struggling this year, at least compared to their previous seasons. They're 6th seed in the East.
No, I know. I was just laughing at your phone going off.
Yes. And then you have the Magic, who, they're solid. They got guys like Aaron Gordon, Vucevic, Jonathan Isaac. But, no...
I have 2 pens in my pocket. Keep going, Justin.
But no major superstar. Vooch is there, but not quite. And then the current 8th seed is the Nets, which that could probably stay because the next lowest behind
Washington, who's about 4 games behind them.
Yes, and I don't think Washington can catch them because it's.
Well, I don't know. This will be interesting.
It's kind of what happens. What do you think will happen first? Do you think Bradley Beal runs out of steam? Or do you think that the rest of the Nets can survive without Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, which they haven't had him all season? Now they don't have Kyrie. So they still have guys like Karis LeVert, who's been very solid for them this season. Joe Harris, very good behind the three-point line. And then they got the defensive end handled in the paint with Jared Allen. But
it's a battle for garbage juice. It
is very much battle for garbage.
I mean, you still got Dinwiddie with the Nets, but man, it's like whoever gets that 8 spot, you're pretty much a Kentucky freshman, one and done.
Oh yeah,
you're getting destroyed by the Bucks.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who takes that 8 seed.
It would
in my
be
opinion.
A rallying success if they were to win a game. In my opinion,
to come within 5 points by the end of a game, that'd be miraculous.
I think Brooklyn can hang in there. As much as I think Bradley Beal's awesome. I mean, I could name other people on that roster, but I don't think anybody else could. Name a Wizard, not name Bradley Beal.
John Wall, he's injured though.
Well, I mean playing.
Currently playing?
Correct. So, I mean, with the Nets, you still have Dinwiddie, who's been playing out of his mind without Kyrie Irving playing this season.
Mm-hmm.
You got Joe Harris, like you outlined, Jared Allen.
They have
Karis LeVert's back. That
Karis
helps.
LeVert is back. They have DeAndre coming off the bench.
Yes.
He's been doing okay.
Yes.
Nothing
Rim
spectacular.
runner. Yep.
But he's kind of like a lower version of what he was back with the Clippers with Blake and Chris
Right.
Paul. It's kind of like,
And age has affected him, like
well,
all
yes,
players.
of course, because that was 7, 8 years ago now.
Yeah, that was a good time ago.
Yeah. So, he's doing solid.
Yep.
Still can't shoot anything for crap, but he's done some work for them.
You got a storyline, or was that yours?
I have a storyline.
All right, let's hear it.
I have what I believe to be a great matchup in the first round for what I believe could be a 2 versus 7 seed in the West, Nuggets Mavericks.
Wow.
With
I haven't
what-
even dove into that much.
Well, that was just kind of,
No, I mean,
I just kind of took my generic.
I'm outlining a different potential matchup.
Okay.
So. But go for it. I want you to. I mean,
Okay.
like, you got
Because
Porzingis against the Joker.
you've
Oh,
got
this is getting me excited.
yeah, because you've also got, because the other half of Dallas is obviously Luka Doncic, and then the other half of Denver, at least in my opinion, is probably Jamal Murray,
Mm-hmm.
being the fact that him and Jokic are kind of like a little bit of pick and roll partners.
Absolutely.
Him and Jamal are the two running the offense. So that could be that'd be a really interesting matchup in my opinion. And I do believe the Nuggets would win out, purely based on the fact that they have had playoff experience before, and they were one game away last season from making the conference finals against the Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it'd definitely be interesting. I think Denver would win based on depth. I mean, you really don't have a whole lot more than Luka and Kristaps.
I mean, they do have solid guys kind of like Dwight Powell.
Yeah, you got Willie Cauley-Stein they traded for.
Cauley-Stein. But, no major players. And then the Nuggets, you've got guys like the Joker. You've got Michael Porter. You've got Jamal Murray. You've even got Will Barton coming on.
Absolutely.
So the Nuggets definitely have more of a bench and more star power. in terms
Yeah,
of that play.
more. They have a lot of B+ players, like we were talking about with the Raptors. I
Right.
mean, you have Jamal Murray and Jokic, who are I think Jamal Murray's an A- player, but you got more depth, you got more young players, more experience. I definitely agree.
Yep.
I think that could be like a 6-game series.
I feel like it could go 7. I do
Oh,
feel like the Mavericks, because the Mavericks are the lower seed in this
Mhm.
scenario.
Absolutely.
So I do feel like the Mavericks would win all 3. I feel like it would go 4-3 home and
Okay.
home,
All right.
because both of them don't have too much playoff experience. Obviously, the Nuggets have had a little bit more than the Mavericks
Past two seasons, yeah.
past 2 seasons, but which is why I also have the Nuggets winning, because I feel like Dallas may be able to win a game on the road, but
But there's only
Denver-
4 games. Surprisingly, there's only 4 games separating them.
yeah.
I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, between the 2 and 7 seed in the West, it's 4 games.
4 games.
And those, for those who don't know, those 6 seeds currently right now are the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Rockets, the Jazz, the Thunder, and the Mavericks.
And then you got Memphis sitting there, 7 games apart from them.
Yeah, I don't have them winning any games against the Lakers.
Well, I have something right now.
All right.
All right,
go
so
ahead.
here's my next big storyline, and everyone who listens to this needs to take note of this. The New Orleans Pelicans are must-watch TV. I am telling you, you will not regret this piece of advice I am giving you, and they will secure the 8th seed in the West. They have the easiest remaining schedule left in the NBA. Memphis has the toughest. And for those of you, I just watched Pelicans-Lakers, and I would love to see that in the playoffs. I saw that, what was it, Sunday night basketball on ESPN. Great stuff. Zion catching all sorts of rebounds, getting lobs,
The Anthony
alley-oops.
Davis revenge series right there.
What's that?
The Anthony Davis revenge series.
Yeah,
right
I
there.
mean, and it was so much fun watching Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Hart go against their former team, and Anthony Davis go against his former team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lonzo throwing alley-oops to Zion, Zion throwing alley-oops to Lonzo. It's a great time. Brandon Ingram's mid-range assassin type game,
Mhm.
where you
Guys
yeah.
really broken out this season.
Yep.
Did really well.
Yeah, and so Memphis is faltering. I do not view the Trailblazers as a contender to get that 8th
I
spot.
do not either. I feel
with-
like they've dropped off a cliff this
Yeah,
season.
with Dame, who's been hurt, they're losing any traction. C.J. McCollum is playing out of his mind, yes, and Melo is playing well, but it is not resulting in them winning. So I kind of view that they're losing traction. I think the 3 contenders for that spot is Memphis, who holds it currently, with respect to that. But you got Memphis. I think the Kings are in play, and I think New Orleans. But I definitely think New Orleans will take it with the way they're playing. Easy schedule. They're really getting into form with Zion back. Up-tempo offense also, to my point, must-watch TV. They're lots of fun. They're just running and gunning. What's it called? I forget what it's called. They could play better defense. That's the one thing. They play up-tempo offense. I think that gets them tired a lot of times, so where defense can become optional.
It's kind of what the old Lob City Clippers did. They were always running very fast-paced, and it was very high-scoring games because their defense would always lack because of it.
Right, absolutely.
So it's kind of like that.
Your legs are a little tired. Late game they get a little better with it. And then back to my love for competent management. I think they absolutely, and this is back in last offseason, they absolutely blew away the trade for Anthony Davis. Because you get 2 first-round picks in the coming years where I think the Lakers won't be contenders, and those picks will have a lot of value. You get Lonzo Ball, you get Brandon Ingram, you get Josh Hart.
And then they won the lottery, got the number 1 overall pick,
absolutely.
Zion Williamson.
It's just competent management. And here's a player that no one knows about, and you will when it comes time to the playoffs. Nicolo Melli. I watch this guy. I watch highlights every night of the Pelicans because I'm just so fascinated. This dude's a power forward. They got him out of the EuroLeague in the summer. Can really shoot the 3. I was shocked when I saw him hit. I think it was like 3 threes last week against the Blazers. I think it was the Blazers. Can post up. Can do some mid-range damage. Did a little bit of that against the Lakers. Did hit a 3. I mean, it's just a sign of competent management when you can go out and get players out of nowhere and then put it into a roster and it helps you win. That's a sign of competent management. David Griffin, the GM, who was the GM during part of LeBron's tenure in Cleveland, he obviously knows what he's doing. I think he's actually one of the more underrated GMs in the league. And I think my last point, which is my favorite point, is going to discuss who I think the best GM in the league is. But I'm just telling you, if you're able to watch some playoff basketball, or even if you're able to watch some regular season basketball, and it's a national TV game, I don't obviously have NBA League Pass. It's a little, not expensive, I just haven't really looked into it that much, where it's like the NFL Game Pass, you can watch every game on any night.
Right.
But whenever there's a national game or there's highlights on YouTube, I'm always checking out the Pelicans. It's a lot of fun. Just watching Zion Williamson play can be a lot of fun in its own. What do you got, Justin? Anything? Or did I take all of it?
I did want to point out something. In this current list, the Spurs are not in the playoffs, which would be the first time in a very long time that San Antonio does not make the playoffs.
What is it, like since 97?
Somewhere
when
around.
when they tanked for Tim Duncan?
Yep. That was the last time they did not make the playoffs.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's just
off the top of my head. I think it was
somewhere.
97.
So if that's true, that's 20. That's 22 consecutive playoff appearances, which is ridiculous. First of all, that is.
Yeah, that's like the Red Wings, quote unquote dynasty time.
And this is the first season, at least according to this would be the first season that Spurs do not make the playoffs. Which is very interesting because they're not even contending for an 8 seed right now. They're like a 11 or 12th seeded team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I gave you 3 teams that aren't in the playoffs that could contend for the 8th seed.
None of them were the Spurs.
Spurs one, it was Kings. It was
Kings, Grizzlies,
and
Pelicans.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like and the Trailblazers are up there, so it's not even those 3 that's part of it. It's weird.
And well, that's another point I wanted to go into was the Trailblazers, because at the beginning of the season, the Trailblazers did look promising.
Yes,
they had made the conference finals the previous season. They lost to the Warriors because it was the Warriors, but they had made the conference finals this season previous. They didn't lose anybody major. All they did was They added Pau Gasol. They added Hassan Whiteside. A few more, I believe.
Yeah, that was a disastrous trade, in my opinion.
It was. And they have just fallen off the cliff. And now, obviously, injuries have taken a part in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really had them doing well this season, and they've just dropped it. And then also the Warriors. Because at the beginning of the season, you thought
Well,
the Warriors could still pull it off.
Absolutely.
Because they
I did
still
too.
had the major pick and roll with Steph and Draymond.
Mhm.
Draymond could lock down the team's best player. And then they added D'Angelo Russell, who was a very great scorer and could take a little bit of the weight off of Steph.
Now they knew they weren't going to have Clay, but yes,
They knew, yes, they did. They didn't. They knew they were going to have Clay, which is why they were. That's why they were able to, or that's why they tried to get D'Angelo Russell when they signed and traded Kevin Durant
Correct.
to Brooklyn. So, at the beginning, you thought that could still work out. It was Steph and D'Lo would run the floor when Steph wasn't on it, kind of like how Russ runs the floor when James Harden isn't on the floor for the Rockets, type of deal.
Right.
And then you had somebody down low, like they did with Clint Capella. You have Draymond Green. Although Draymond Green isn't as tall, he can guard the perimeter, and he's a lot better with steals. But they just dropped off a cliff, man.
Yeah, with Steph breaking his hand in October, I mean, I think they really did. And I saw a conspiracy theory the other day that plays into this a little bit. With him, they pretty much went into a tank mode where we're going to still play Draymond, D'Lo. We know it's not capable to win games.
Well, they traded D'Lo.
Well, right, but they played him almost until the trade deadline. They traded D'Lo because they knew they could get a lot of value for him, which they kind of did.
They got Andrew Wiggins and a few picks.
I'm not an Andrew Wiggins fan.
Neither am I. The guy's
They
had
pay
so
him
many chances to prove himself in the league for 5 seasons now.
Wasn't he drafted in 14?
14?
I don't
So,
know. I don't know
around
what
5,
he
6
does
seasons.
well.
Exactly.
And he gets paid a lot of money.
And he was the number 1 overall pick, too.
Yes, and he was traded by Cleveland to Minnesota for Kevin Love.
Kevin Love, which is also part of why LeBron joined back at Cleveland.
Right.
Because
that was part of the deal breaker.
Because that's what got the big three of Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love.
Right.
And Andrew Wiggins has broken out recently, this season actually.
Well, but there's no one else to shoot the ball. I mean, Eric Pascal, what was it, Damian Lee? I was watching Houston Golden State in my free time on last week. I'm a complete loser, but
yes, but I do feel like Minnesota won that trade because they've had a young star in Cat for a few years, and I believe if they weren't gonna get him any more help, because they had one run a couple years ago when they had Jimmy Butler still.
You mean the team that was the 8th seed and then got bounced?
That one,
yeah,
which is the best they've been able to do since getting Karl Anthony Towns. So I also do love the fan theory of the fact that the Timberwolves are starting to try to go after Devin Booker.
Yeah, but didn't he just sign an extension? I could have sworn he
did sign an extension, which is the problem. But that was the fan favorite, I guess.
How could you possibly trade to get him?
Which is the problem.
Yeah.
Is that it looks like Devin Booker is much more in it for the money than the championship, which is fine. If you want to
live your life, man.
Yeah, if you want to just be in the NBA to earn money, do you. But I also felt like it would have been fun to see 3 of the
remake of
3 of the top 10 picks from the 2015 draft on the same team, because Cat was 1, D'Lo was 2, and Booker was, I think, around 8.
Yeah.
It was a little. I think he slipped to double digits. Stanley Johnson was 8 that season because the Pistons drafted him. We can go after that on a later episode. Yes, so that could be fun, but then again, I don't see Devin Booker leaving, especially with the fact that he just signed that contract extension.
No, I agree. Go for it.
Well, I was just going to point out the fact that Phoenix is kind of boned, especially because of the fact that now they're very much low on money because of this extension. And the fact that I do believe they're still technically paying DeAndre Ayton during his... He's back from suspension from doing PEDs.
And plus, it's a rookie contract.
It was a rookie contract. But you were saying something. Go ahead.
No, I mean, my next point was the Philadelphia 76ers must... M-U-S-T must have a top 4 seed if they want to survive the first round. They must, because they are atrocious on the road, but they are excellent at home.
They are.
They are a good team, and this is going to, if anybody's listening to this who's a Philly fan, this will piss you off. They are a good team that tries to masquerade as a great team. They are not a great team.
Because... Well, I agree because they don't really. They have solid bench and solid other players, but they really don't have anybody outside of Simmons and Embiid who don't get along very well.
Well, and that's the other thing. So the next worst away record is in their conference is the 9th seed Wizards. That's saying something.
The fact that they're the 6th seed and the 7 and 8 seeds have higher road records than they do.
Yeah, and here's another problem with Embiid and Simmons currently out. They are currently the 6th seed. This could be disasterly come playoff time.
Yep.
And I know they can't really fall to the 7th seed, but if it puts you out of range again, like I'm talking about, getting the 4 seed, you won't. I don't believe they can survive a first round matchup with, let's say, Boston.
I agree.
I don't think,
have that in my little.
I don't think that they could survive a first round matchup if they have to go to Miami.
I honestly think that if they don't secure their home court advantage, they can't beat any of the top 5 current seeds.
Oh, I agree.
Agree, because that's the Bucks, which they're not winning.
Oh, hell no.
That's the Raptors that they're not winning.
No.
That's the Celtics that they're probably not going to win.
Nope.
Right now they would face them. They're not going to win that. And that's the Heat and Pacers. They probably wouldn't win that either. Maybe I could see the Heat because they're still a little bit of a young team, haven't had much playoff experience as a whole with guys like Kendrick Nunn or Tyler Herro.
Pacers potentially. With Oladipo still finally coming back, they're still gelling. But it still resonates that it wouldn't be easy. Even if they win, it would still be at minimum a 6-game series, and that deters you later in the postseason.
Yeah, because they had a great, because they had a very let me try to phrase this, because they had a very good postseason last year.
Mm-hmm.
They just got outplayed, and Kawhi Leonard made the best shot in the history of basketball on them, but. They were looking really promising last season, and then they just dropped it this season.
Well, I think it's telling. If you look at any numbers, it's not just that I don't think Embiid and Simmons get along the best of friends. Their games don't mesh.
That is entirely correct.
You can look at any analytics, and I have done this. When Embiid has gone out, Ben Simmons has played out of his mind. When Simmons has gone out, wait, did I just say that? It doesn't matter. When the other one goes out, the other's game
improves drastically.
Yes, it improves drastically. I mean...
All right, let me shoehorn in a topic here then.
All right, let's hear it.
If they can't make it, say they don't make it out of the first round, A, do they trade one of them, and B, if they do, which one? And you can discuss that. I'm going to make sure my dog is stupid.
I don't know whether you would take Embiid because he's able to stretch. He's able to rim run, defend, hit the occasional three-point shot, really be able to initiate the offense at times with his size, his skill. Or you keep Simmons, trade Embiid because Simmons is more of a point guard. He can distribute at a high and play at an up-tempo offense. See, the problem is you have one that's a point guard that can't shoot, and then you have a center who can shoot well for a center, can mid-range, can shoot threes at an average level, can obviously do all the inside stuff great. He's a great defender. See, this is where the Sixers look really bad because the tanking, the process worked in a short burst, but the process didn't...
worked.
Well, yeah.
Well, because
it
was really for... let's say there was 5 main players that they got from tanking in the process. Those 5 being Nerlens Noel,
bust.
Jahlil
Okafor,
bust. Joel Embiid, who's currently on the team.
Yep.
Ben Simmons, currently on the team, and Markelle Fultz.
Bust.
And Noel, Okafor, and Fultz are all on different teams.
Mm-hmm.
Fultz is on the Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Okafor, I believe, is still with the Pelicans.
I don't know because he's not in playing, so he could.
He
be
was
on the
playing
roster.
when I went to watch him, the Pelicans and Pistons play. He was playing then.
No, I know, and now they've had the combination of Derek Favors and Jackson Hayes playing, but yeah.
I believe currently Nerlens Noel is playing in OKC.
Yeah, and he actually doesn't play bad, but for a number... Wait, what? He was for a high draft pick,
He was 6th. because he was originally drafted by New Orleans,
Hmm.
and then they traded him on draft night
Right.
to, which, at the time that looked fine for Philadelphia because they didn't
Right.
have Embiid or Jaleel yet,
Yeah.
so it wasn't the three centers problem.
Right.
So they still had that going for them,
Right.
but the way Philadelphia continued to draft was the problem. I get why they drafted Embiid. He's done very well for them. They took a long time for him to get there, but he's done well.
Hmm.
But I don't get why they drafted Jahlil Okafor. Why would they draft Jahlil Okafor if they had what they believed to be, which it was, in Joel Embiid? So I've always been confused about why they drafted Jahlil. Jahlil's been doing okay in New Orleans right about now. For what he has played, he did
Right.
okay,
Right.
but he hasn't been playing a lot.
Right. No, I mean, and the other thing, and nobody wants to talk about this, else they screwed this whole thing up was the trade for Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to talk about it, but they gave up key bench players for a rental. You gave up Dario Saric, you gave up Robert Covington to get Jimmy Butler for a rental when you knew. Well, you didn't know that he wouldn't resign, but you didn't.
You would presume that if you had gotten far enough in the playoffs, that he would be inclined to resign based on how far they had
Well,
gotten.
plus they knew they were going to be in salary hell if they knew they were going to give Ben Simmons an extension, and you were going to try and re-sign either Tobias or Jimmy. So, and then they gave up a bunch of assets to get Tobias Harris. They gave up the Suns pick that they owned.
Which was very valuable.
Yeah, they gave up. They gave up the shooter, Landry Shamet.
Andrew Shamet,
Yeah, I mean,
who's currently with the Clippers.
yeah, he's still on the Clippers. Yep, his Tobias was on the Clippers, and they traded for him.
Yep.
So, and it's this age-old debate: do you exchange depth for superstars? Do you exchange assets for superstars? Now, I agree with giving up assets, but I don't know.
Like picks and stuff
Right,
like that.
picks.
Because if
future
you want to try winning right now,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to trade away picks and young raw talent.
Right.
Because you're not gonna want to use young raw talent as a complete superstar, unless they're obviously like Luka Doncic, who's
Right.
already leading his team in his third.
Just turned 21.
Just turned 21
Yeah,
in his third season in the
Yep.
league. So, he's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Because you've also got guys like Devin Booker, which I feel like he would do a lot worse on any other team besides Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because I don't really feel like he's a leader.
Okay.
He's much more of a person. He's very. I feel like he's kind of like Kobe. Rest in peace. He's kind of like Kobe, where he's not very much of a passing person. He's not like an ass to his teammates or anything.
Right.
But he's much more. Get me the ball. Let me do my work. I'll score us all the points.
Right.
Which if you win games and you win championships, which is what Kobe did with guys like Shaq, Pau Gasol, that's fine.
Right.
If that's how you want to play and that's how you win, you do you.
Right.
But when you've had an under 500 record before you were drafted and continuing after you're drafted, years, that's a mixture of bad management and drafting by
Oh,
Phoenix.
absolutely. The Sun, bad management in the Suns. It's in the
Oh, yeah.
dictionary.
And so is Pistons. But
That.
it's very much that I feel like they could get a lot for Devin Booker because the fact that it's taking them so long to get him help, and by the time they get him help, he'll probably be at the later part of his prime because most of what happened during this offseason, there's a lot of people that signed about 3 or 4 year contracts. So guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they signed 3-year deals. You've got guys like Giannis, who's still on his deal for about 2 years. You have who else? Jimmy Butler, who's on a 4-year deal, I believe.
Yeah, sounds right.
So, and then Mavs still have Porzingis, who they signed for about 3 or 4 years. They re-signed him. So you've got all of these teams signing contracts for players at a long time, and the fact that the Suns didn't go and try and do any of it is baffling. because the Suns were never in free agent talks for anybody. And I don't know why they wouldn't
they
try to
traded
go
for
out.
Ricky Rubio, but it's like
That's not going to do
it
anything.
doesn't do anything.
When they're already putting the ball in Devin Booker's hands and enabling him as kind of their 1-2 combo guard, why bring in a true point guard like Ricky Rubio, who's done pretty well in terms of like assisting. He's done okay with his. He's not a very big scorer, but he is able to find his teammates pretty well.
He's not a great point guard.
Mm.
I wasn't a fan of him when he was in Utah. I'll be dead honest with you. I think he
I don't know.
hindered
I was
their
kinda-
offense
I was-
a lot of times in Utah.
I don't know. I was a
During those
fan of
playoffs.
his days back in Minnesota.
Right.
He did pretty well with that Minnesota team because that was when Kevin Love was still in Minnesota and doing pretty well for himself there.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like they have very conflicting guards because that's kind of what Houston has, because Russ wants the ball in his hands, but James also wants the ball in his hands, and they're putting it a lot in James. But Russ does a lot better when the ball is in his hands because he's not a great shooter.
Right.
He can't shoot. Okay, his 3-point percentage is very bad, but his field goals in terms of like true shooting percentage is actually okay.
Right.
So, he's very good mid range.
Mhm.
He can do a little post, but
Drive, kick.
driving is much more Russ's style,
Oh, absolutely.
and then kicking it out to his teammates or finishing at the rim. So,
So we got those triple doubles.
it is exactly like the triple doubles, and he's a great player, and they've been able to make that work. But I don't feel like they can make that work in Phoenix,
I agree.
because
Bad management, bad coach. I mean, they go. I think
because
Devin Booker's had how many years he's been in the league? He's had a new coach every year except one.
so Devin Booker's never been able to find a groove with a head coach either.
Well, you can thank management.
Yeah. So I don't blame them or him for getting him the ball a lot because he is their star player, especially with DeAndre Ayton out for the suspension. That they're really, if they want to try to at least contend for games, they're not going to make the playoffs by any means, but at least contend for games or seem like they're trying, they're going to put the ball in Booker's hands. But when you enable that to a certain extent, you're gonna blind people to the fact that while Devin Booker, yes, is good, he isn't as good as he seems because of how much Phoenix lets him work the ball when they couldn't get a point guard that was competent in being able to distribute the ball and being able to find their teammates. And I feel like that is, like you said, that's on Phoenix management.
Oh yeah. Absolutely awful. So yeah, just to go back, finish it up. Sixers need the 4 seed. Gotta have it. All right, you got here. I'll go on to my next one. Here are my 5. Here are my teams that I view that have warning track power. In baseball terms, that means you get to the warning track, you can't get over the hump, you can't hit the home run. So these are teams that I view that their respective conference finals are the ceiling for the teams.
Go ahead.
All right, Houston, Miami, Indiana, and Boston. Now this is already under the presumption that they had a chance to get to the finals.
Or conference finals.
Well, yeah, and I will also throw Utah in here because I really liked Utah at the start of the season. I'll throw Utah. Forgot about that.
Utah doesn't have very many forwards they can use. They've got the combo, two-card combo with Mike Conley and
Ingles and Bogdanovich.
But their main selling points are Rudy Gobert holding down the paint. He's a very good defensive player. Defensively,
yes.
obviously. And then offensively, they've got Mike Conley and Donovan
Who's
Mitchell.
coming off the bench.
He is, which is very interesting. Which means I do believe they've been running Donovan at the 1. They've been putting it in his ball.
He's played. Well, they've had.
Put him on ball, not off.
Well, he plays a lot of on ball, but they still have another point guard that they use. I think it was wasn't it Darren Collison?
I believe so.
But anyways, I mean, so here are my reasons why. Houston, I do not believe small ball will work in the playoffs.
Absolutely not.
Plus,
especially if they go against other teams, like if they go against the Jazz Rudy Gobert is just going to dominate whoever that is, or the Lakers with Anthony Davis, for example.
It is
Nuggets
interesting
with
because they
Jokic.
have beaten them with small ball in the regular season. But the problem is I think Anthony Davis only shot it 10 times, and Rudy Gobert shot it like 7.
Thing is, I don't think small ball can work against competitive teams in the playoffs.
Right.
Because of the fact that a series can go 7 full games, the other team has lots of time to adapt to what you're doing and counter your strategy, and that's what's gonna probably bite the Rockets a lot.
Oh yeah.
Because they were stupid for sending Clint Capella to Atlanta.
Well, I mean, they have an identity. They want to stick with it. The other reasons, James Harden and Russell Westbrook both choke in the playoffs, and everybody will point to Russell Westbrook, having huge triple-double games, but he always would hinder the Thunder with his lack of shooting or being able to shoot threes, spacing the floor.
Or the fact that his teammates let him get rebounds, stuff like that.
And they didn't do that as much in the playoffs. That was more of just the triple-double boost the numbers thing.
Mm-hmm.
Miami Heat really don't have a second and third option. But besides Jimmy Butler, a lot
They've got their rookies, none.
A lot of B players, yeah. None who isn't really a good shooter, can distribute, has a little bit of mid-range game. They also have had a huge lull since trading for Andre Iguodala that concerns me. Still trying to gel. And the bench, it's a lot of nice players, and I love what they're doing. I love the comeback that they've made since last season. You got Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo has played well. You have Goran Dragic, who's like 50, seems like.
An older guy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the conference finals is their limit because and it goes back to Toronto, and we view Toronto and the Pelicans with a lot of B plus players. I view the Miami Heat with a lot of B to B minus players.
I agree.
I mean, you got what's his name? You got Duncan Robinson. You got Tyler Herro, rookie.
You've got Nunn.
You got Kendrick Nunn, absolutely.
And, I mean, they do have their stars, obviously, with Jimmy Butler, and now Bam Adebayo has started to develop very well.
I think it's just a huge problem when Jimmy Butler's your best player.
He's not a bad player by any means.
No, but I don't think he can lead you to a promised land type scenario.
That's what the Sixers found out.
But he wasn't the best player. Joel Embiid was the best player.
He still is the best player.
Absolutely. I think he's far better than Ben Simmons.
I do think Ben Simmons is the second best player, but I do think Embiid is best by a lot.
Right. And then next up, Indiana Pacers. They just lost Jeremy Lamb, a sharpshooter, small forward guy. They are still really trying to gel with the return of Victor Oladipo. They were playing. I was watching it on TNT.
They were trying to play a little bit of a taller ball using the bigs.
They were playing the Trailblazers, and they were just struggling to run an offense. I mean, Victor Oladipo took a skid, and I thought he had hurt his quad again. It was really scary.
And the fact is that's kind of annoying to me because they have two playmakers and that they can use their starting lineup, being Oladipo, presumed healthy, and now they have Malcolm Brogdon, who it's taken some time to gel with the team. Obviously, it's a new team. He's been playing with the Bucks, who it was kind of
he was the bench point guard, right?
Yes, because he was playing the bench,
right?
Because Bledsoe was the starting point guard
Correct.
still, and it still is, but They need a seat. I feel like this season, they're trying to mesh together, because I do feel like they have a very solid starting lineup with Brogdon, Oladipo, Warren, Sabonis, and Turner.
I agree.
Because Sabonis and Turner can both spread the floor because they can both shoot very well. Turner more than Sabonis, but they are both lockdown defenders.
The whole Warren's a good defender. Brogdon's an excellent.
As is Oladipo and Turner, because Turner's been has been like top 5 in blocks since his sophomore season.
Yep.
And while Sabonis isn't anything like that, he's no chump. He still does his job. But that leaves so much desired on offense. Because
yeah, it do- oh, it definitely does.
go ahead.
No, I mean, once Oladipo gets back into form, I think you'll see a lot better of an offense. Brogdon isn't a great offensive player.
He
I'd
can
be
distribute
careful
the
with
well
it.
fairly
Yeah,
well.
he can shoot it okay, but he was more known for his defense. He can get to the rim. I just think, and I think if they make it to the conference finals, it'll be a rousing success.
Because if they do that as a 4 or 5 seed, they have to get past the Bucks, who have essentially clinched the number 1 seed at this point. They have clinched the playoff spot, and I'd assume they'd finish 1.
And they can only tie the Warriors' record after that brutal loss to the Hornets the other night. By the way, they're at 50.
Which I believe Bucks Pacers would be a great series because they will have to force Giannis to shoot. And I say that because they're probably gonna put if Bucks run Giannis at the 3, the Pacers are probably gonna have to put T.J. Warren on him
And Sabonis.
or Sabonis.
I mean, you got to double team him. You got to do what the Toronto Raptors did
Well,
last
the Toronto Raptors created a wall. They kind of like quadruple teamed him and.
Well, that's what you got to do.
Oh,
and I got to go watch the highlights of what the Hornets managed to do, holding them to 16 points. I got to go actually watch highlights of a Hornets game.
Because I do feel like the Pacers, because if they're able to divert both Sabonis and Turner to the middle, and they kind of get Warren to try to cover over, to probably get Brook Lopez, because one of those two will be guarding Brook, presumably, starting, and Brook can shoot 3, so they're not really well, but,
Efficiently.
Yeah, so they're going to need somebody covering him.
Right.
Which means they're probably going to have to do like a complete rotate and leave because who's their point guard? Not really.
Who?
Bucks point guard.
Eric Bledsoe.
Who's
That's
also
gonna be a problem.
Because the problem with the Bucks is that they really have surrounded Giannis with shooters, with guys like Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez,
who's going to
Eric
guard
Bledsoe.
Chris Middleton?
That's
going to be a huge problem because you'll just say, we'll put our shooting guard Victor Oladipo on him. No, you won't, because there's a huge size mismatch and people don't realize it. And obviously, Chris Middleton can shoot the lights out of the ball.
Oladipo's a very true shooting guard in terms of size.
Yeah.
He can flex over to the 1,
right.
But Chris Middleton is very tall for a 2 and can flex to the 3.
Absolutely.
Kind of like Klay Thompson.
Yes.
He's kind of like a lesser version of Klay Thompson, obviously because Klay Thompson's a better shooter.
Yes.
But that's kind of what got the Warriors going as well, because Klay is so lengthy, and Chris Middleton is also pretty lengthy, is that if you put anybody except for either a tall 2 or a 3 on them, if you put like a regular size shooting guard on them, that's gonna spell major trouble, because especially with Klay, is their jump shot, how they get up, and because of how tall they are, they can just shoot right over them. Can't even contest it, can't even block it. It's just sails right over, which is what Chris Middleton can do. So
it's a problem.
That is a very big problem, and then you got Brook Lopez, who's a chump change for defense, but offensively, especially with his threes, he's a pretty solid shooter.
All right, and I'm not going to mention the Utah Jazz. I'm going to try and get on with this. All right, so my last team that I view as warning track power, the Boston Celtics. I worry about Jason Tatum not getting the ball enough. I think he's a star. I think Jaylen Brown's a very good player. I view Kemba as a good player. But size...
it's a problem.
I mean, they have Daniel Tice, who's been a feel-good story this season. He's had some great games. I think we were at Buffalo Wild Wings. I think he had a 30-point night. I think they were in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. You have Enes Kanter, who's not a good defensive center.
He's not very good.
He's a good offensive center.
Yes, and if you need to, they can probably flex and throw Taco in if they really need to. But he's not going to play.
They're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that, and even if they do, he's probably going to play single-digit minutes anyways.
Yeah, he'll get roasted. So I worry about
so slow.
The Boston Celtics size. I do acknowledge Jason Tatum's a star.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going against...
Kemba's, I believe, had one of his best seasons ever.
Yeah.
Because he's not in Charlotte.
Yeah.
No
Kemba, fans. You mean?
Yes, Kemba.
Yeah. Well, Kemba had great games in Charlotte, but it's like I worry about size. I worry about defense. I mean, Raptors, their defense. Bucks, their defense.
Well, if you worry about size with the Celtics, right now it would be a Celtics Sixers first round. So would that be a problem because the Sixers would have the incredibly tall for that position Ben Simmons running the 1 against Kemba.
I don't.
And
worry
then
about that, though.
you have Embiid bullying whoever's in the paint, probably Al Horford or not Al Horford, Enes Kanter.
He's on their team now. I worry, but I think the home field advantage comes into that. I worry about because the Celtics will play a different defense. They will not allow Embiid to do. They did because that was the game plan. What was it 2 years ago? That's how they crushed the Sixers. They let off on Ben Simmons. The nearest person who would guard him was at the free throw line. They would make sure there was like a box around Embiid. Yes, the Sixers had shooters, and they would play on them. But I think the Celtics would smash the Sixers.
I agree because of the fact that also most of the shooters that the Sixers had aren't on the team anymore.
Correct.
Because
the
Sixers still had JJ Redick at the time.
They had JJ Redick. They had Robert Covington still. They had Dario Saric, who's a very stretch 3.
Which all 3 of them are on different teams now. All 3 of them are gone.
Gone.
Because JJ's in New Orleans, Rocco is in Minnesota.
Houston.
Yeah,
that's part of that small ball.
Yep. And then Saric, I believe, is in Phoenix.
He's in Phoenix.
So
the Jarrett Culver trade.
So the Sixers aren't. The Sixers are going to have a very big problem with spreading the floor.
Oh yeah, and especially against a good defensive team, any good defensive team really. And Brad Stevens has had the Sixers number, the coach of the Boston Celtics. So it's like. And I think the Celtics would win, but again, I view the Celtics as the Eastern Conference Finals as their ceiling on that. All right, you got another storyline for me, Justin?
I
got
potential Western Conference Finals of the LA teams.
All right, I love it. Let's hear it.
So I think the Clippers win in 6. If it goes to 7, I see the Lakers because at this point I see. Because it would be Clippers have the 3 seed.
Yeah, but they would play in the semis then, right?
Lakers have the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
So the semis would be the 2 and 3 and the 1 and 4. So it would be Clippers against. Right. At that pace, if it's a 2 seed, it'd be the Nuggets. Which I do see the Clippers beating the Nuggets. I feel like the defensive
absolutely.
The defensive presence of guys like Patrick Beverley, Kawhi Leonard. Paul George, and even now Marcus Morris, who's a pretty solid defender as well.
What a loaded team.
From off the bench. The one problem that I feel like the Clippers would have with the Lakers is trying to cover Anthony Davis specifically in the post. Because yes, you've got tall guys. They might just double man him, yeah.
No, I mean they might just let him have it all day.
Because
or double team him. Either one works.
Their tallest guys on the roster are Ivica Zubac and Montrezl Harrell. And Montrezl Harrell is pretty small for a 5, anyways. He's more of a 4 that they've had to stretch to a 5 last season, and now they've been starting Ivica Zubac, who's okay, but he's better. He's more better for his size. Yeah. Than what his actual skill as, especially an offensive player. So you've kind of got to balance that of what they're going to do for Anthony Davis. Now, in terms of LeBron, they're going to stick, obviously, they can stick Patrick Beverley.
You got 3 bodies.
They've got 3 bodies.
4. I didn't even think of Pat Bev. You can stick Kawhi, Paul George, Marcus Morris, or Patrick Beverley.
Exactly.
And they don't, and you could divvy up. Okay, you get him for 20 minutes, you get him for 20 minutes. Now there's not even that many minutes in a game. You could just do like 15, 15, 15.
Yeah, and then who else isn't that is probably going to cover Kuzma, who's also a very solid offensive player. He's not
streaky. He's very streaky from what I've watched.
Yeah, which is why I feel like they'd probably put Paul George on him instead. Because I feel like Kawhi Leonard is a better defensive player.
Into a brick wall.
I definitely feel like Kawhi is a better defender than Paul George. Obviously, they're both amazing defenders.
Both very good, yes.
But I do feel like Kawhi is better. So Kawhi is going to be put on LeBron. Which if that's a 1-on-1 matchup in the Western Conference Finals,
sign me up.
Amazing series.
Sign
first
me
of
up.
all. And then second off, you're gonna have. And then they might flex Paul George to the 4 to cover Kuzma, because Kuzma's kind of a 3-4, and George can cover anything anywhere from the 2 to the 4. Could flex to the 1 if they need him to, but they've got Patrick Beverly to cover that, so that's not gonna be a problem. But even then, Patrick Beverly's been able to cover taller people playing point guards or 2s or 3s because of the fact that he annoys them so much when he's
annoying,
defending.
He's physical.
He's very physical, and it throws them off their game because they're just annoyed with how he's playing defense, and that's good for him. Play hard defense. Show them that you mean business. That's not a problem for me. The problem comes is that LeBron is such a good player that even with Patrick Beverly on him, he can still do very, very well.
Yep.
Even with Kawhi on him, he can still do very well. Yeah. I expect if that's a series, and if they stretch it anywhere from Patrick Beverly, Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard, or Paul George on him, I could see LeBron averaging over 20 points easily. Potentially even 30, just because of how good LeBron is.
I think he should be the MVP. There's your hot take. He's been playing out of his mind, and I would definitely sign up for that Western Conference Finals matchup. The only thing is I think the Clippers could still get the 1 seed. They're only 5 games out.
Yeah, and then by that logic, so could the Nuggets. So
I don't think they can.
Mathematically.
Oh,
mathematically speaking, they can.
But the Clippers, I don't think they will. They. Load management, all that stuff. They weren't the 1 seed last year.
The addition of Morris has helped with load management, with him coming off the bench.
Yeah, and I mean, when Kawhi was on the Raptors last year, they weren't the 1 seed. It didn't really matter that much.
Quick side note, 2 seed versus 3 seed Raptors Sixers best series ever. Fight me. Continue.
All right. I hope we get comments about that.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to see it. My last thing, and we'll probably wrap up here in a second. All right, the Oklahoma City Thunder have the best general manager, and they can win a playoff series. I truly believe this. So, there is no doubt in my mind that Sam Presti, who is the general manager, is the best general manager in the NBA. Everyone thought, hey, they're going to tank. They traded Russell Westbrook. They traded Paul George. They traded Jeremy Grant. They got a bunch of first-round picks, and I'll outline that in a second. They're going to tank. They're going to rebuild this thing. They're going to tank. It's going to be
then they
atrocious.
Did not.
They didn't. All right, so they are currently, and these notes are old.
They're currently the 6th seed.
And when I wrote this down, they were the 5th seed. But if they climb within the 4th or 5th spot, I truly believe that they can beat the Houston Rockets or the Utah Jazz in a first-round series. Now,
I feel like that'd be a very interesting matchup of Rockets Thunder.
Oh yeah,
because
Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, former on their opposing teams,
2 almost guaranteed Hall of Famers. But
Chris Paul definitely.
Chris Paul definitely is, and Westbrook. If Russ does anything, like get on an All NBA team, gets MVP, wins finals, does anything like that, Russ is guaranteed. Well, yes, but wins another.
Oh, okay. Well, and then, and I just, going back to this, I love competent management. I'm going to outline all of this.
The Thunder have amazing management.
Yes, they were self-aware to know we're not able to win the title with the group of Westbrook and George, so they traded Paul George, although reportedly he asked for a trade. It doesn't matter. They get 5 first-round picks for him, 2 trade swaps, so for maybe new NBA people, what a trade swap in this case means is they can choose. It's not whether who has the best or worst record, like some of them. They choose whether they want to swap or not. It is their choice. So they get 5 first-round pick, or my notes are 4 unprotected first-round picks, and then they get a pick swap with Miami. So 4 unprotected first-round picks and a pick swap with Miami, so they can choose with Miami in 2021. You trade him for a budding star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he was very good, and a solid forward, and Danilo, I can never say his name right, Danilo Gallinari, who's really, really good. And I thought they were going to trade him. I don't think they would have gotten a good value for him. I did like keeping him. So you get 4 first-round picks and a pick swap. Cool. You get a young superstar. Wow. You trade Jeremy Grant for a first-round pick from Denver for this upcoming draft. Add to the draft war chest. You trade Russell Westbrook, who, and this is a huge, huge thing, and it's a huge thing that people don't always understand. Russell Westbrook is the leading scorer, and I believe leading assist disher in Oklahoma City Thunder history. It is difficult to trade that kind of player under the circumstances they have with getting bounced the last two years in the first round of the NBA playoffs. You trade him for 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. You get a battle-tested, hard-ass leader as Chris Paul, who's going to lead your team. In the summer of 2018, just rounding out this competent management thing, which is amazing. Oh, I also have another point. Actually, I have a lot of points. Holy crap. You trade for Dennis Schroeder, who should win Sixth Man of the Year, in my opinion, this year. He can contribute. He has a great shot for Sixth Man. He can help the team. He comes off the bench, no problem, no ego. He's openly said, I love coming off the bench as long as it's helping the team.
Yep.
You keep Steven Adams. By all reports, when you put him on the trade market, you weren't getting the value you thought was fair, and that's vitally important. Instead of panicking and saying we need to trade him at all costs, doesn't matter the value, you know you can get a lot better value than what you were offered. You keep him, you're going to make the playoffs, he can help you. And since I threw Nick Nurse in the Coach of the Year discussion, I'm going to throw Billy Donovan in the discussion for Coach of the Year. I think these two should be the 2 contenders. I think that Billy Donovan has proven, amongst all the criticism of the Thunder not getting it done, that he is far better than what people thought. He definitely deserves Coach of the Year consideration, considering the public perception that the team was going to tank.
Mm-hmm.
And then, this is a hot take, and I know nobody's going to like this, this team and franchise going forward is better without Russell Westbrook.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
I think they have more of a ceiling. The floor is obviously a little lower, but I think the ceiling's higher without Russell Westbrook. The stat padding, the lack of shooting come playoff time, the I need the ball in late game situations does not help your team to win. And I used to be just the ultimate super fan of Russell Westbrook, but it's really lost its luster for me watching the past 2 postseasons.
Mm-hmm.
How he's crushed his team's ability to make postseason runs. I'm just a fan of what the Oklahoma City Thunder have done. Competent management. You are able to rebuild, yet still not have to tank necessarily. You're getting a lot of good, cheap assets. And here's the thing: they're probably not going to use all their draft picks, but what they can do is if you draft one other to go with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you can use the rest to trade for one. It all works, and
Chris Paul
leads to good future success.
And Chris Paul is still doing very, very well.
And that's the other thing. Everyone thought he was baked by the way the Rockets went out. He didn't look good in the postseason last year. He's come out on fire.
He's never really looked that great in the postseason, especially when he was with the Clippers as well.
They looked good the first year he got traded when they took the Warriors to Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. It was just last year that age looked to be affecting him, but this year he's come out ready to go, guns blazing. It hasn't seemed to affect him that much.
Quick side note for those who don't like Chris Paul, he has a 100% Hall of Fame probability according to Basketball Reference, so stop.
Oh my God. I'm not the biggest fan, but I have come I like what he's done this year, leading a young team, playing well. Now, the contract in the long term still does not look great with the prospect of how age will continually affect him.
He is still under 35, though.
Correct.
Which is a decently good factor to take note of.
Right.
Once he starts getting up there around 34, 35, 36, that's probably, if they're looking to become immediate championship contenders,
well, no one's going to take that contract. Unless he retires, then it's off the book. But.
Yeah. I mean, he's already going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's already top 10 assists for all time. He's already in the top 10 assist leaders of all time, and he's in top 10 for steals.
Yep.
And he's done pretty well from 3-point line.
Yeah, he's
for his career.
Way better than Russell Westbrook.
Oh yeah, not even close.
Just helps his team out. All right, you got anything else, Justin?
According to just that matchup specifically, we're just.
No, I mean anything. You can comment on any of it. I mean, I think back to my hot take point. I think the Thunder can win a series if it's against the Jazz or the Rockets. Because, I mean, going back to this, connecting the dots here, I mean, small ball against Steven Adams and Danilo Gallinari.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that could pose a huge problem. I think the Utah Jazz, as much as they have addressed it, have a problem with their offense a little bit because they had to send Mike Conley to the bench because he wasn't playing great with the starters.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Thunder could outpace them a little bit enough to win a series. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm just saying there's possibility with the make of this roster.
Yes. One last thing.
All right. I love
it. Who are the two teams that make the finals, and who wins in how many games? I have Clippers against Bucks and Clippers in 7. Who you got?
I have the same matchup. I've just been really struggling.
I think it goes 7 regardless.
No, I've been struggling with who wins this series. I mean, I think it's I think it would be 6 games.
Okay.
I don't give myself a lot of room with 6 games.
Bucks have advantage, I believe, right?
They would have home court advantage.
They would have home court advantage.
They're 52-9. The Clippers are 41-19.
So that if it's in 6, that Clippers game, the game the Clippers would win would be at home.
I think Clippers can win in 6.
All right.
I think if you just check out their roster, it's ridiculous, man.
It is ridiculous. I think Milwaukee. I feel like they'll go even at home for all the first 4. I think it'll be 2-2 through the first 4, and then
I would love this matchup. By the way,
this would be an amazing matchup as well. I think Bucks win a close one in Game 5, but I think Clippers wins a 6-7. Riding off of a great, I feel like they would crush the Bucks at home in Game 6, or at least try to, and then try to ride that into a 7. Kind of how like Cleveland did in 2016. Because Game 5 was in Golden State, but 6 was back in Cleveland, and they beat Golden State.
It was like 30. The only competitive game was Game 7. Every other game was a blowout. That finals.
Which I feel like that could also happen for this finals as well, assuming Bucks Clippers.
No, I hope not. I mean, I'm really excited.
Because the two best defenders on the Clippers are obviously Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and the two best offensive players for the Bucks are obviously Chris Middleton and Giannis, or at least Giannis. I'd say Chris Middleton is the next option. I just don't think those two
would have enough help in the final scenario. I think that's where
Middleton and Giannis.
Yeah, I mean Bledsoe's good, but it's like you need a third option
because the thing is that they're gonna put Kawhi if that's the scenario, they're gonna put Kawhi on Giannis. They're putting their bet because they might try to run what Kawhi and the Raptors did last season with
they never singled him up truly.
I know. They could try singling him up then and then have somebody switch over, either Paul George or probably Paul George, maybe more of a role player, guys like Zubac or Montrezl Harrell, or maybe even Lou Williams if they need to. But I feel like Kawhi can get him on the perimeter, maybe try to stop him from driving. But if he's pushing Kawhi into the basket, or if he's back to the basket, Giannis is back to the basket, that's when the help needs to start coming over. Yeah. That's when Harold needs to come over, or Zubac, or anybody really. Even a guard can just come get him on the front and try to get like a little jump ball, at least stall him.
Yep.
Make the Bucks offense reset for a little bit. So
I'd be excited about it.
That'd be a fun series. So would Bucks Lakers because because they're gonna stick AD on Giannis if that's the case, which that would be, and then they probably stick Giannis on AD as well. That would be a fun matchup. And then they'll have Chris Middleton on LeBron, and they'll have that going back and forth as well, which would be very interesting.
Yep. All right. So there's our takes with a little less than a quarter of the NBA regular season left. Please help us out. The whole podcast, I know it's just me and Justin speaking right now, but it'll help us out a lot if you like, subscribe, suggest, write us comments. I know we're our startup right now. We're going through YouTube. Write us comments. I hope at one point to have enough comments to where we do like a listener mailbag, and we'll just read comments on the podcast and react to them. Be a lot of fun. I'm sure we get a lot of not nice things, but Hey, listen, help us out if you like what you hear, and if this helps you out with your NBA knowledge, go brag to your friends about it. You don't have to tell them where you got the info. Just say, hey, look at me. All right, this is Why Would You Think That? Thanks for listening.